So what happens when people don't have access to their food stamps? What happens when SNAP benefits are cut off? Well, we may find out. We have a government shutdown situation. October 1st, that's when things pretty much shut down. That's the beginning of the new fiscal year. And of course, the Democrats and Republicans could not agree on a budget. What that means is the federal funds that comes from SNAP, that's usually given to the people, that could be interrupted. And here's how it works. SNAP, the federal government, they have a certain amount of money that they can give to certain states, to the states. And the states are responsible for distributing the funds. Now, what we're seeing is Pennsylvania saying that, if the state they said that if the government doesn't continue its funding, doesn't start sending some money, they're going to have to cut off benefits around the 16th of this month. Obviously, we've already passed that deadline. You have other states like Texas and New York talking about, if they don't get any federal money, they're going to have to come up with some type of contingency, or people could go without their EBT benefits. And we're at the 21st at this point. So people are going to be without their benefits. And what that means is a lot of single moms with children are going to be without their benefits. You're going to have a lot of people in a pretty rough situation. Now, a lot of people say that a lot of these people should get a job. And yeah, I'm always an advocate of taking care of yourself, doing the most you can for yourself. I should also remind people that a lot of people who get benefits do have jobs, and they just don't make enough to really feed themselves. That's the situation we have in this country right now. We have a lot of people who are employed, but they don't get paid enough to actually feed themselves, and that's a problem. And when these benefits cut off, there's going to be some concerns. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube and on social media, people talking about, well, if these benefits are cut off, essentially there's going to be more criminal activity. People are going to be more desperate and targeting people. One lady was online talking about how people are going to start getting robbed in their parking lot of the grocery stores, and the grocery stores aren't going to really do much about it. Here's the deal. If something like that does start to happen on an elevated scale, on a large scale, it will be a problem for the grocery stores. Because what they're going to have to do is get security. They're going to have to invest. They're going to have to provide some type of security. They're going to have to call the police department, have the police in the parking lots. I've already seen that before, long before this situation. But they may have that type of situation, because if people don't feel safe shopping in the stores and they're worried about getting robbed in the parking lot, they probably won't go. But of course, people need food, so they'll probably drive further into better neighborhoods or better communities that do provide security, do provide police officers who will guard the parking lot. That's probably what's going to happen. So if a grocery store say, you did business with us, you're in the parking lot, what happens out there doesn't affect us. All it takes is some other grocery store 10 miles away or whatever to say, okay, we're going to have police officers in our lot, so come shop here. And once that happens, people get in the habit of shopping at that grocery store, and the old grocery store loses that service, they lose the customer. So that's something that people have to be aware of. And if that happens, on the consumer side, we're going to have to be more aware of when we go to the grocery store, when we go to the gas station, really anywhere. Somebody walks up to you, asking for money, you got to be on guard. You don't know if that's just going to be like a crime interview, the person trying to gauge whether you will be a good target or not. I'm not saying that everybody who loses their food stamps are going to be doing this. No, I'm not even saying that, there's definitely going to be an increase. I'm just responding to someone commenting on this possibility. And some of the things I would think about if the scenario happened, it could be more than EBT. It could be an economic situation where people become desperate for basic resources. So that's just something I'm thinking about. I don't know if that's something you're thinking about. Of course, you have to go in the daylight. Don't go to these places at night. If you're in a situation where you feel unsafe, you feel like there's an increase in crime, and there's a big concern about that. There's some things you got to really consider right there. So what's going to happen? Well, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you do see people act in desperate ways if this drags on for a while. One thing that could happen is some of these states could find alternative funding. That could be a possibility. I know the Biden administration had some alternative funding for SNAP at one point. But I wonder how many people are on these programs who aren't citizens of the United States of America. So I want to know, how will you respond if November comes around and they actually shut down a lot of these benefits for people. How's that going to affect your security? How's it going to affect how you move? Will you only go to the stores in the daylight, or are you going to make sure you only go with a friend for safety reasons? And what if there's civil unrest across the country if this drags on throughout November and for even into December towards the holidays? Well, obviously there's Thanksgiving. So how would the government respond? Will they respond by sending troops into cities? Well, there's already a very modest amount in there right now, supposedly there to help ICE or whatever. Are we heading towards something? I don't know, but it's definitely something I think we should be thinking about right now. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And don't forget, the future belongs to those who prepare for it today.